its launch in May 2009, Forbes India has been a champion of entrepreneurial capitalism in line with the Forbes DNA. The Forbes India Leadership Awards, which commenced in 2011, is one big step in that direction. The 2017 edition of the awards saw the best of the best converge on a single forum and provide insights into the spirit of leadership and excellence. The night consisted of thought-provoking discussions, leadership talks, and an award ceremony recognizing transformational leaders, both individuals and organizations, who have achieved success through their vision, foresight, and business ethics.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the 7th edition of the Forbes India Leadership Awards, presented by Microsoft, luxury partner BMW, state partner Chhattisgarh, hospitality partner Oberoi Hotels and Resorts, associate sponsor Avendus Capital, on-ground partner Florista, knowledge partner KPMG, celebration partner Glenfiddich, and media partner CNBC TV 18. So let's get started then, and may I invite on stage Joy Chakraborty, CEO Forbes India and President Revenue Network 18, to deliver a welcome address.
Good evening, everybody. I, on behalf of Forbes India, welcome you all to the 7th edition of Forbes India Leadership Award. This year also happens to be the 100th year of Forbes magazine and the 9th year since its inception in India. I would like to congratulate every team member of Forbes India family, Network 18, to dedicatedly working towards bringing this issue and the grand event. I would like to thank you all, our readers, our advertisers, our sponsors who have been there with us all throughout the years. Ladies and gentlemen, please sit back and enjoy the evening and in the event. Thank you very much.
Well, to set the tone for the evening, let me invite on stage Saurav Majumdar, editor Forbes, to address the august gathering.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 7th edition of the Forbes India Leadership Awards. Ever since the Forbes India Leadership Awards, which we like to call FILA, were instituted in 2011, they sought to celebrate and continue to celebrate those leaders who not only had foresight, but also the guts and the gumption to walk the talk and carry others along. Many of the leaders we have celebrated over the years have also been those with a deep sense of commitment to society, building organizations which touch the lives of the less fortunate. Selecting such leaders, of course, is never an easy task. Months before we actually finalize the winners, Forbes India's editors sit down to discuss a long list of names and deep dive into their attributes. We at Forbes India believe success is nothing if it has not been achieved the right way, inspiring others to follow that path. The leaders we choose to celebrate tonight have done exactly that. Here's to many, many more in the years to come. I do hope you enjoy this evening and have a great evening. Thank you so much.
To share the confessions of a serial entrepreneur, let me invite on stage Ronnie Screwvala.
Good evening here. When we finished the jury and they said, you got to give a talk, I said, not really. And then he suggested this twist in the tail with a very funny title that says, Confessions of a Serial Entrepreneur. So I was quite intrigued. Many, many years ago, we started cable television in the country for the very first time. It was in Cuff Parade, and now it's prolificated into a very, very large industry. And after about 5 or 6 years, the space got extremely crowded. And I had a great CEO, and I told him, and he came to my room one day and said he's leaving and he's going to the south of India to start a cable company. So I told him, look, why don't you talk to your new owners and ask them they want to buy the company and take you as a package deal? And I was half joking. So that was my first ever exit I experienced, and then decided, wow, this could be something interesting. Many years later, we tied up with ABC and Bloomberg to start a business channel. I guess those were one of my more misguided decisions in life. We moved out of that because that was not a profitable venture for us. And last but not the least, before I started my second innings on things that were completely different, was when we actually decided to actually sell UTV to Disney. And I remember for almost a year after that, everyone looked at us as if we had done the worst thing possible. Because exits in India, for most people, is a sense of abandonment. And I think that's a criterion that maybe entrepreneurs of today need to reflect on. So I just thought I'd put a few more one-liners. One, many times I get asked, what's the right age? And I think there isn't really a real age. Second, I worry about role models in this country. I do believe today that we need a lot more role models. For a lot of people, we go out and spot trends, but my favorite saying is that you need to spot trends and trucks to spot exactly what's going to hit you right out of the blue. So I'd like to, at the end, give that message to some of the young entrepreneurs here, that overall, the most important learning lesson for me has been to stay the course. Because entrepreneurship is not an outing, it's a journey. Thank you very much for having me here and for your patience.
First of all, when you look at leadership itself, that talks about somebody who can think about the future, think about how things are going to evolve. And when you combine the word transformational along with it, what you get is somebody who has a foresight or a thought process which is much beyond the norm. You know, a person who's able to think about multiple dimensions at the same time.
To deliver a talk on the social impact of innovation, please welcome on stage Anant Maheshwari, President, Microsoft India.
Good evening, everyone. So my purpose here today is to just share some of those stories and create even more innovation out of this room. So just the image of education in India. And if you look at the GDP spend of education around the world, especially in developed part of the world, it's about 6%. India, it's about 3%. And I guess all of us would agree that the need here is the most. Linked to that right after is skilling and jobs. The biggest problem, I guess, that our country is facing at this point in time. So over the last couple of years, we've been trying to find the linkages between everything that we've learned in the white-collar world, take it to the blue-collar world, and start creating a combination of skilling and jobs at the same time. The two numbers that you see at the back here, this represents the number of students that drop out of school in a very large sample that we conducted this research in. And this is where we really worked with the Andhra Pradesh government to start figuring out how can we apply artificial intelligence and machine learning to predict when a student is about to drop out. Because once the student has left the school, it's very difficult to get that student back. But if you can predict, then you can have that conversation with the student before the dropout happens. Let's move to the second story. Today, if you just look at the farm sizes in India, roughly about 2.8 acres compared to an average farm size in the US, which is very, very different, where you can apply capital, you can apply tech, you can apply a lot of other capabilities. To bring that capability to farmers in India, that's where we are applying a lot of other very simple, low-cost sensor mechanisms and linking it back with machine learning and artificial intelligence to use the simple mobile that they do have in their hands and getting a lot of capability back to them to get the best out of those 2.8 acres. The third and the last story that I will speak of is in the area of healthcare. What we did in this area is really use the capability that a patient who is about to go through a cataract surgery actually gets a prediction whether that surgery will be successful and what kind of treatment could be offered. Even for all of us, and imagine people around us who go for a consultation, maybe pay whatever, 200, 300 rupees, and want to get maybe just for 20 rupees more, a very good prediction of what the treatment for them should be. That's where technology is getting applied in making a difference. When we started asking the question, what's our role in the world? What are we here to do? And this is the mission that we came up with to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Thanks for your time.
Please welcome on stage Abhinav Agarwal, co-founder, Fluid AI, to speak on demystifying artificial intelligence.
So hi everyone, it's great to be here. I think it's always an exciting time. AI today is at its utmost hype in terms of the capabilities that it can do for an organization and the way it can take that journey forward for the next years to come. So interestingly, the biggest thing me and Raghav always talk about when we talk about AI is that, people always think that the biggest differentiator for them in computers is that their capability to learn is a lot more. So I wanted to dispel some facts when it comes to that. We have a fundamental prejudice, a fundamental set of assumptions that we just cannot break, no matter what evidence is thrown in front of us. And this happens with organizations every single day, right? It's even more complex, these assumptions, when you actually go out and see large amounts of data, financial data, math numbers, and suddenly you're wondering, hey, where's the optical illusion in all of this? And that's where we feel, in a small way, AI can really demystify that decision-making by adding the rational elements of a computer and also adding the self-learning capabilities that today don't exist in traditional computing technologies. And the last thing I wanted to leave you with was, so the tin can was invented somewhere back in the 1810s. Does anyone know when the tin can opener was invented? Any guesses? So that was all the way in 1858, right? So imagine the amount of time. It took 48 years for people to figure out an easier way to open an item that had become an everyday item to store food or sell food in. I think we're at that same cusp where, in terms of technology, computing has been around for the last 40, 50 years. Data on computers has been around for the last 40 to 50 years. So is AI that tin can opener? Maybe. Thank you very much.
Transformational leadership to me is understanding all the opportunities that exist in the external environment, understanding all the capabilities that exist inside an organization, and then really working with the culture of the organization to create clarity about these opportunities, to generate the energy in the organization to do something about it.
FMCG in a new India, opportunities and challenges. That's the theme for our panel discussion this evening. So let me invite on stage Mr. Adi Godrej, Chairman Godrej Group, Harsh Mariwala, Chairman Marico, and Suresh Narayanan, Chairman and Managing Director, Nestle India. Moderating the discussion will be Arun Kumar, Chairman and CEO, KPMG India.
Good evening. It's great to be here with such a distinguished audience and to hear such inspiring stories. I thought we would focus on two particular areas. The first might be the here and now. That's on GST. So let's take that first. How is GST changing the supply chains, and also the recent reduction in the rates for various items like toothpaste and soaps? How's that making a difference? And maybe Mr. Godrej, we start with you.
I think GST has been a very good development for the fast-moving consumer goods industry, FMCG industry. It will lead to much more adherence to tax paying. Tax evasion will become extremely difficult because input credits would be lost if you evade taxes. And I think it's going to add tremendously to the growth of the FMCG sector and the economy.
Add to that, Mr. Naran.
I think I echo the sentiments that Mr. Godrej said. I think there are three things that are becoming important in the way in which we conduct business. Number one, this is a consumption economy. And I think that the steps that have been taken on GST, while we might have all had our own initial teething issues, the recent round of reductions that have taken place, I strongly believe will clearly stimulate consumption and also stimulate penetration, which are really the two big issues that we face as FMCGs. I also believe that GST in some sense is going to unleash economies of scale. Most of us FMCGs are now reworking our entire distribution systems.
Now the big vision of GST was to create, for the first time, really one common market on the subcontinent. Along with that, seeing a reduction in transportation costs, logistics costs. Are you beginning to see early signs of that, or is that too early?
I think definitely we are seeing early signs of it very clearly. For example, transportation time taken today from one place to other in India has come down quite considerably. Logistics has become much simpler, and I think it will play out very well. So my feeling is the GST, the good effects of GST will play out in the economy, and I expect good GDP growth in the second half of this year.
What about using the data that comes out once you've got GST applied all the way down to the front end? Have you thought about how the data generated from that would be useful?
I think the condensation of the supply chain in terms of the role of wholesalers will reduce to some extent. To that extent, I believe that the modern trade offtakes will increase, and they've already increased in the last few months after demonetization as well as from after GST launch. So to that extent, you're getting far direct data rather than, in our system, it goes through a distributor and then many times wholesaler and retailer and then the consumers.
So let me maybe move on to another point, which is one of the very innovative and interesting things on the Indian FMCG scene is the rise of authentically Indian products, like the herbal products, natural products, and so forth. So what do you think of the future of this category, both in the country and globally?
Certainly in the area of foods, it's probably going to be more based on nutrition, science, and being able to market science and nutrition to consumers. I think that's where it's interesting. What I see in India, and that's very heartening, what I'm noticing is in the startup space, there are a lot of young companies which are coming up with some very, very sharp and sharply positioned products, which are extremely good. And I think I really welcome that revolution, because it's going to be these young entrepreneurs who are going to be the next wave of large companies in the food sector.
That's exciting to hear. The last question that I thought I'd ask would be to Mr. Godrej, Mr. Mariwala, about the global ambitions of Indian FMCG company, because this is a very exciting set of developments that we are seeing.
I think the global market will be very interesting for Indian companies, because there are many things we are doing in India to find ways of increasing per capita consumption and household penetration, which is the requirement in many parts of the world. So our FMCG business has gone quite global, especially in the developing countries, Africa particularly. And now about roughly half our turnover comes from international markets. And I think this will be a big area of growth.
The reason we went, I wouldn't call it global, but international, is that apart from growth opportunities in certain markets where we had an organic growth opportunity, I think there were other reasons. One was most multinationals offer careers outside India. And those days, I'm talking early 90s, there was huge clamor for being located in other countries, So it's much wider than that, because many analysts come and say that, okay, why are you going global? It is not giving you as much returns as, say, India. But my answer has always been that you need to look at it more holistically in terms of people, other benefits, reverse learning, and not just financials.
I think that actually brings us to the end of the sessions. It's a challenge when you have three people who know such a lot about this topic. You could go on for a very long time, but we did a very quick strobe over a number of different topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think transformational leadership is, in some ways, selling a vision. It's a vision which might not be immediately understood by people at large. It's a vision which requires effort to sell. At the same time, it could be something which is something of the future.